Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode here at the Arcane Archive. Once again, we are coming to you today with a new kind of favorite, segment that we brought on into this year. Another rousing Cautionary Chronicles. That's right, Cautionary Chronicles. Today we have a particular theme that I guess, will be touching upon purely because, well, that's just kind of how a lot of the stories ended up falling for us today. What, Sammy, you want to go ahead and let the people know exactly some of the stories we'll be touching upon in this particular episode?
Sorry, do I want to? Are you giving me an option?
No.
I'd
I'm asking you to because I've refused to. I've already done the intro, so you get to take that from there. Go ahead, let them know what are some of those stories we're going to be talking about today. Just a little bit to whet their appetites.
Right, look,
gauge their gag reflex. Maybe.
See, I hate you said gag reflex because I was going to talk about the last time we did this. We talked about a horse brothel. That theme kind of continues here. There's a couple stories we have today that are fetish adjacent, which I don't like. I think. Like,
look.
I hope everybody understands I don't like.
It's I feel we both understand and feel it is important that we take the brunt of these stories, of these things, we get them out there to let any new aspiring players and D&D and GMs for this game to know, hey, look, this stuff can happen, yes. However, there are ways of, first off, identifying it, recognizing it, and hopefully, avoiding if you'd like, and maybe even just to deal with it in a better, healthier manner than some of these stories here. That is the overall goal here.
I think like the main
cringe.
Can we just stop? Can we keep it in your pants? Like, I don't understand. Like, I just want to put it out. Like, I don't want to kink shame, but like,
that's what I'm saying. No, we don't kink shame here at the Arcane Archive. It's fine,
unless
it
hurts other people.
That's what I'm saying. If it starts to mess with people or screw with other people, like
I shame. I'm gonna shame.
Just be considerate. Just be considerate and be aware that, like, hey, if you guys are a group of consenting adults and are aware of, the expectations of what you guys are doing, getting into, and whatever, more power, all the power to you. That's fine.
Go play Fatal.
Go play Fatal. Don't look up Fatal, but go play Fatal.
No, look it up.
No, Sam.
And then you can
it.
comment
Stop
down below the cool stuff that you find on.
No.
I want to know what you roll for length and circumference.
Oh,
I'm not telling you what you're rolling it for.
Yeah.
But I want to know what you roll.
Oh, well, yeah, right. And what else could they possibly have gotten? Oh, you have a 2x4 as a weapon? Sure.
Evidently, there's a lot of things you can roll length and circumference for in Fatal.
Just about everything. Everything has a girth. All right. With that, let's go ahead and jump into today's episode of the Arcane Archive presents Cautionary Chronicles. We're going to start off with today's episode with this story titled, I don't know how much longer I can handle my DM's poorly disguised fetish game. So, OP says, I've been bearing through this campaign for a year now. Let me just run through the highlights real quick. 1, it's a sci-fi setting, a la Mass Effect, in fact. However, we're forced to play her incredibly weird homebrew D&D game. She refuses to try any other system. 2, all enemies seem to do on average about 40 to 60 damage a turn. No less at all. The spells a spellcaster can take are just sort of arbitrarily given out with no real rhyme or reason, and we don't really seem to have much choice ourselves. We all have to use these homebrew weapons and basically just play fighters. But that's all okay, all right? That's totally fine. We make it work, and we have fun doing a ton of space crime for a while. At this point, the GM introduces a new character that immediately starts hitting on my character. The NPC is 26. My character is canonically 19. I find this to be really freaking weird. It's at this point that the fetish stuff starts to crop up. For one,
already.
Our doctor on the ship is apparently a big titty alien woman who wants to be our mommy. We encounter, at that point, an evil space plague thing, and multiple times she has described it trying to tentacle F us. Wow, she went hentai really quick.
I need
that.
like a
it did
horny.
not.
I need like a internet horny bonk stick to hit people with.
Oh my goodness gracious! She went straight hentai with it right off the bat. Yeah. But okay, we get through Act 1, and most of us are like, "Hey, it's fine.
We're alive still.
Yeah, we got to the other side relatively still clean. We were able to prestidigitate for what we could. We're fine." Just a few red flags here or there. At that point, we managed to somehow squeeze by in her confusing, busted homebrew of a 5e system and have a decent time being space criminals. At this point, the second act has now come upon us, and it basically starts with us having to protect a princess of a space empire. At this point, gratuitous descriptions of how the space plague has somehow been implanted into her womb, and we have to get our totally not my fetish doctor to take it out somehow. Oh God, the whole campaign is literally just about monsters that tentacle F women and implant weird space viruses inside of them. There are multiple dungeons centered around this.
The amount of censoring that you're doing, because I read this before and I didn't want to include it in the episode until you went, "Oh no, we're doing it.
We have to do this. It must be learned."
It's a great. You're executing a great amount of control.
Suddenly, we learn that our boss, the doctor character, is a weird PDF file who used to date the princess lady we're protecting as a child. Dear God, I'm sorry for criticizing the balance issues. Can we please just go back to doing space crime? Please. This is all this campaign is about anymore. We meet a new fetish bait giant snake woman character, and she plays the freaking Dance Till You Die song, and then takes the princess out after we finally started to feel a little bad for her. Good Lord. Wow, we're starting Act 3, and I have no idea how much worse this could possibly get. Her awful homebrew system can be at least a little fun when she's not totally overwhelming us with hundreds of enemies trying to essay us constantly. The story, however, oscillates between grim, dark, grape fantasy and obvious fetish bait, and it is so freaking weird. I've played with this DM for years, and it has never before been like this. I don't understand. I feel like she's just getting too comfortable, but I absolutely fear what else awaits in store for us.
Dude, the palpable fear in the typing of this person is
he is clearly traumatized. I don't even want to know what he has actually bore witness to. For real.
This is
oh my God.
You didn't have to go to therapy for PTSD after playing a tabletop RPG.
Hey, what is happening?
That's literally what this sounds like.
He's never done this before. Why? What happened to the GM that made her suddenly start doing this?
It sounds like he's talking about war crimes he saw being committed in the Cold War.
I mean, good Lord.
It sounds like dude spent a weekend as a chaperone guard in Gitmo and is talking about what happens there.
It's like
to laugh at someone's misery.
Oh my God, dude. Jesus.
Right,
I mean, it's just, he shared it online exactly for the reason that we have to we again bore witness to this. Okay, so
we can break this down and talk about
it. No, wait. Let's go. Wait, hang on. Let's get some of the comments down below. No. First top comment is rated, "Hey, no D&D is still better than the 90s hentai dungeon D&D, okay? For F's sake. And it's like, another one below that says, reading that sentence wasn't on my bingo card for this year, but I'm certainly happy to place it now. Good Lord. Okay.
I love this. So has anyone spoken to the
Did
DM about this?
or
Of course
yeah.
not. That would require communication, which is something that you turn to Reddit for, not the people you're referring to in your posts.
Duh.
I love this. OP is
something stopping you from leaving? Because I would have honestly left at the whole womb tentacle impregnation part, if not sooner. If they leave, the GM will put them in their tentacle impregnation dungeon, I guess. Oh, God.
I hate that I have to ask this, but did y'all have a session 0 in any way, shape, or form? Hey, that is a really great question.
Yeah. Our session 0 was just solo sessions with each of our characters, and none of this came up at all.
Oh my God.
That is not another dude writes, that's not a session 0. That's like 0.5 at best. A 0 is where y'all sit down and talk about what this game is going to be and what you want to get out of it.
Yes. Oh my God.
We love that.
All right. I hate, I don't want to like be mean to this person because obviously they're going through the ringer here.
They are, dude.
Your loyalty is amicable, and I appreciate what you're trying to bring to the table here by sticking with your party and trying to figure this shit out. Don't. Like 100% don't. We've talked about this so many times. When you feel uncomfortable at a table, you talk to your DM. If that doesn't work, find another table. Dude, it's not worth the obvious trauma you have accrued.
Okay. Here's the thing, right? Look, clearly the OPS stated that they have been with this GM for a pretty decent amount of time. They had never apparently even hinted at doing this kind of behavior in the past. Clearly something has happened, okay? Like, okay, he's saying she's gotten too comfortable now. Okay, well, if you guys are comfortable enough for her to start, literally dropping you all in a hentai scenario, you could probably feel comfortable enough to talk to her about it and be like, hey, we don't want our characters to be inadvertently impregnated by a weird space tentacle monster.
Also, stop having all of your enemies SAS at every opportunity.
Or attempt, that's what I'm saying. Like again, and be like, look, and if you have a whole thing about, big titty alien women or whatever, like, okay, that's fine. Plenty of people do. That's not a super weird thing. But don't stop trying to force it on other people. If they are not interested, then leave it alone.
It's one thing to have all of the female characters in your game described as largely endowed, and that's okay. When you try to force that into another player is when it's like there's a problem. Because like if that's what you want, go read Hitchhiker's Guide and have fun with that. Like go read a book. I don't know. There's books out there.
There are plenty of them. There are literal like erotica smut novels that you can have plenty of a good time with yourself in the comfort of your own home and your solitude.
Look, I'll even go out on a whim and say there exists forums and groups of people who are into the erotic roleplay thing. Go do that.
We literally said that. Go get a World of Warcraft account. Go to one of the RP servers, and engage in ERP on a Warcraft server.
Don't ever tell someone to do that, Adam. Just go on Discord. It's safer. Oh my God.
Hey, look.
WoW?
Look,
WoW Classic?
What she's into, clearly, hey, she might find some nice, like-minded friends there, all right?
Just
at that point.
Going out on DeviantArt.
Go to 4chan. Go to 4chan.
Oh.
Plenty of places for this. That's like, go to Tumblr. Go on to Tumblr.
Tumblr's dead, dude.
Actually,
you know what? Yeah, go on Tumblr where no one will talk to you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You can find all of the stuff you want to see there and engage in. That's fine.
God. It's
just don't force that on your players who didn't ask for it. Come on.
I mean, getting into the nitty-gritty serious part for just a moment. And I'm going to repeat what I have said time and time again. Stop continuing to play in groups that make you feel uncomfortable. This is that to the extreme. This person seems to is like developing trauma associated with this D&D campaign. I'm sorry. I understand that you love D&D and you want to keep playing. This is not worth it. It has never been worth it. It's one thing to be like, I don't really like how the game's going. Maybe I should talk to the DM. To I feel physically and mentally uncomfortable every time I join for the session. This is like you're literally in fear of the baseball bat covered in barbed wire that she's waiting around the corner with to try to stick.
It's not a baseball bat, Sam. It's a dildo covered in barbed wire. Okay,
it's just gonna stick up in somewhere that you don't want to have that happen. So stop going. That is the best advice I could give. Is talk to the other people, see if they're also on the same page as you, and then all of you just have a mass exodus. Someone else DMs
or if you're gonna have a mass exit, then have an intervention with the GM. To be like, hey, you know what? What's the thing? Here's the thing. If they played for years, and for instance, if your GM, who you guys have played with for years, suddenly started to do kind of some weird, strange stuff, you'd probably be more at liberty or more interested in asking him, hey, is are you okay, buddy? What's going on?
Have a conversation.
Yes. Point being, do that now. However, I will say from the earlier comment on this post from one of the other people, the dude asking like a session 0 or whatever, and da-da-da-da-da, the OP does respond and says like, well, we did briefly talk about like things and the campaign after the fact. And she said that the reason that we didn't have it beforehand was she couldn't tell us because it would have been a spoiler and it wouldn't have been as shocking anymore. Which, yikes. But, you know, we never really pushed it too much. So that right there also might maybe give a little bit more insight into the GM's mental state, and that maybe, I guess, she's also doing this stuff specifically for the shock value, which
there's better ways to do shock.
Oh, absolutely. But this is definitely the easiest, in my opinion, one of the like most uninspired, like unoriginal ways you could possibly try to like shock your players and then get, I don't know what she's going for exactly. Like, because again,
maybe it's just me, but I feel like, you know, the more trivial and normal aspects of everyday medieval life would be more shocking than this in terms of like things like murder and raids and, you know, capturing people and shit. Like I don't know, that would be more shocking to have to deal with in a realistic sense.
I don't doubt
whatever
that
bullshit this is.
She's including some personal preferences in her version of shocking whatever. Again, but the fact that she says that, and OP, she's literally like, oh, it wouldn't have been as shocking, or it would have been a spoiler. And it's like, that's not, like, the OP, that should immediately send, you know, signals to the OP of like, huh, you know, what? I mean, mission accomplished. I'm very shocked. I'm very shocked by a lot of this.
Traumatized, actually.
So was that what you were going for? Because mission, can we stop now? You accomplished it. Can we stop now with that? Can we do something different now? Can we change the, like, you know, just something? But you know what? Whatever. That's at this point, if he has not actually had a conversation with her about this and they have not all sat down to talk about it, then yeah, dip the hell out. If you have, okay. Here's another insight again. The OP says, I'm very close to the DM IRL, and she is usually pretty cool. Plus, I don't really get to play D&D otherwise, so I just grin and bear it. Also, no, it's a custom homebrew thing that she made because D&D is better than all other systems, and she has weird hangups about using other people's homebrew. Like,
I hate to be that guy, and I understand you know this person in real life. Stop playing D&D with them.
Yeah, no. Again, we literally talked about that in the last Cautionary Chronicles. Sometimes you cannot play games with your friends. Sometimes and that's okay. Not all the time. Believe me, there are plenty of times where you can play with your friends, and it's a fun, great time, and you can have an amazing experience and make amazing memories. But sometimes
this ain't it, Chief.
It ain't it. Ain't it, bro? This is not the one. I'm sorry. This
It's-
is not the one.
Maybe it's just me, but even if you convince her to change over to a normal set, this is all I'd be able to think about every time I heard them speak, and I would not be able to play with them anymore. Like
Well,
this is too much. Like you said, it went up for a year.
yeah.
Adam, I can maybe get through 2 sessions of this, a year's worth. I'd be pulling my eardrums out.
No,
like
well,
this is not.
like I said, when in my cringe campaign when I was a part of, when the GM there started pulling shit like this, I immediately started to dip. I was like, nope. That's
All
where I
right,
draw the line. Again, I have a pretty high tolerance for shit. I get it. It's like, hey, you know what?
A year.
Maybe there are some things. Maybe there are some aspects that are cool and that are nice that you enjoy. I get it. Fair enough. You know what I mean? You can give people a chance because you never know what people are going through, right? We also talked about that in the last episode as well, where sometimes people are going through some shit. You don't know. You don't know what's going on. But I mean, plenty of times, you know what I mean? And that doesn't always mean that they are like who they're portraying and behaving right now is who they fully are in their entirety.
Oh, sure,
right?
yeah.
And so it's like, you know, it is, especially if they are considered to be a friend, it is important to give them the benefit of the doubt, at least at the start. You give them a benefit of the doubt, like, hey, bud, you okay?
Yeah, not a year in.
We need to maybe sit down and have a conversation because this shit is getting a little out of hand right now. Like, here's the thing. I get it, even to her point of so-called like shock value, okay, whatever. Like, or even let's not even say shock value, but let's even say like you're playing in a space-themed D&D campaign or TTRPG, whatever. That does leave a lot of room for you to find all manner of crazy, weird, wild, insane, terrifying, messed up organisms, creatures, beings, whatever the heck. Like, because the universe is nigh infinite to our understanding, especially in this. And that, you can find horrible monstrosities. The universe no doubt contains them, at least in terms of what we feel. That's okay. Yeah, you can bring monsters that are terrible and stuff. But again, as we have said before, if you're going to introduce potentially like horrendous, traumatic, or any other aspect or element that has those elements for people or has those kind of vibes for people and things, then if you're going to do that, you damn well better have a goddamn reason and purpose that you are using that for. You cannot just arbitrarily keep dropping things in and being like, yeah, we're just using this because of shock value, because yeah, it's like, no. One, you don't have to be super overly descriptive, especially if people are trying to tell you, hey, this is uncomfortable. Or even you should, as the GM, you should be actively paying attention to how comfortable your players are feeling in the situation. If you can notice that maybe they're kind of like cringing or they're like, ugh. Or even if the sounds of their voices, if you're playing online, you don't have like, cameras up, even that, you can still tell a pretty decent amount from a player based off of how their voice sounds and their responses and how they're behaving. So like, again, GMs, I will always advocate and I will say, don't be afraid to put in, heavy, intense, and emotionally, moving content in your games, right? Because like, again, like Sammy just said, in terms of like medieval realism, right? Things like suffering, things like all kinds of plague, rampant what is the word I'm looking for? Sam, when people were super poor, Poverty, thank you. Rampant, like unchecked poverty,
Dude,
sickness.
Disease. You want to get weird, dude? Go full Aztec. Human
sacrifices.
Playing sports with someone's decapitated
head.
Again,
like war crimes. The way that soldiers, would behave against to enemy, not even enemy, but like so-called enemy civilians, like civilians who were just they did horrible things to those people and things. They would do more than just kill people.
Yeah, but like you don't even have to include that. It's already
what I'm saying is if you're trying to establish a certain amount of so-called gritty realism or whatever, to again provide an understanding and to have an emotional reaction or movement from your players and stuff, I can understand that. But once again, it has to serve a purpose. It doesn't need to be so freaking detailed and explained to such an extent where you're literally having potential individuals having panic attacks at the mere thought of it. Like, you can basically say, hey, that bad stuff happens. Slavery is a thing. These things happen in our real world, and they should be understood that they are a very real thing. They happen, and that is exactly why maybe your group of people, to be fair, OP apparently said that they're space criminals anyway, but either way, it's like, hey, be aware of this stuff that happens, and you can choose to either maybe try to help fix it, to prevent it, or you can just then ignore it or something. I would only say really include that kind of thing if like a potential PC has a backstory, right? PCs are like, they can be slaves before, they have gone through bad things, and they were able to overcome those things, get past them to a certain extent, and that gives them maybe an opportunity to grow. Barring that, though, I don't see much of any reason why you should be doing what the hell you're doing here. Either way, we've been on this particular one for far too long, and we got many more stories to talk about. So let's move on to the next one. Sammy, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I have another one titled D&D Nuke. Just a forewarning. It's more fetish stuff.
Yeah.
Just recently, I was a guest player for a D&D
We decided to
campaign.
get that out of the way first. So
yeah, this was the best campaign ever, but unfortunately, we were the horror story, specifically all of us players and the DM. Heads up, this led to some drama. If you don't like drama, stop reading. If you like drama, get some popcorn. End parentheses. So I won't bore anyone with a
that's
long
what we're here
epic.
for.
Yeah, right. I won't bore anyone with a long epic tale. But what we did do was very hilarious, but the DM did not agree. The grammar, I'm sorry, is bad. So we were fighting the BBEG, a giant elder red dragon who established a Chroma Concord. Yes, our DM stole the plot from Critical Role. They were a big Critical Role fan, but not very original in their ideas, which is such a great burn in such a concise sentence. So good on you. I hate that, by the way.
It's not fun when people.
It's not fun, especially just like pulling shit from.
Well, I was gonna say you can be inspired by certain
just pulling
things.
Direct plot points pisses me off.
And don't get me wrong, I'm sure freaking Matt Mercer wasn't the first person to come up with the idea of having the multiple different chromatic dragons. Like,
no, it was the way he did it.
But the way he did it is very
he wrote it. It was good.
Don't do just a complete freaking knockoff. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's 100% what.
Make it your own. Take it and make it your own.
They're fighting this big dragon. We were losing. All of us were at low health and out of potions, and we didn't exactly have a plan. Since after a little 3-hour combat, our party, Dragonborn Rogue, Drow Paladin, Half-Elf Cleric, and Kobold Wizard, the items we had were not good enough. In hindsight, which, pay attention to this little gem, our DM greatly overdid the dragon's stats, making it an impossible fight. So there's red flag number 1 of railroading your party. We decided to do something we had only read on online forums by shoving a bag of holding inside another bag of holding and throwing it at the feet of the dragon. Now, for those of you who are more in tune with actual online forums and what that would do, there is no throwing it, but for the sake of argument, they obviously read something different than the rest of us. And so they thought it acted like an astral tear grenade. But their cleric had an idea. We each had our own bag of holding. So you see where this is going. So we shoved a bag of holding inside a bag of holding, then shoved that in another bag of holding until we had one bag of holding left and threw it at the dragon's feet. That's 5 bags of holding. It worked, making a tear 5 times the size of what a bag of holding inside a bag of holding would do, and the dragon was gone. Usually they were banished to the astral plane, but the DM described the way we did it created multiple rifts that scattered the body part of the dragon to different parts of the astral plane, effectively killing them. I turned to the cleric and was like, dude, back and forth. But the DM was upset with our plan, saying something like, do you realize what you effing did? Now, to pause real quick, the DM did this to themselves?
Yeah, he literally let it happen. He literally let it happen the way that it happened.
I wanted to put it out there. That's because that's all I care about. Because by rules, it would have just transported the dragon.
I mean,
But that's
well, the thing being too is if you, I don't know what platform they were playing on, but if they were using
5e,
D&D
I think.
Beyond. Well, I mean D&D like what like if they were using like a VTT or any other like character sheet like digital character sheet. Like if you have the item bag of holding, if you have any description for that, it literally tells you how that works
Yeah.
in the bag of holding description. So it's
Yeah.
like there's not
It's-
really much excuse
So
for what.
it's whatever.
But either way, continuing.
But I wanted to point out the DM did this to himself. We realized that the DM was actually trying to TPK the entire group for laughs. We didn't know that at the start of the fight, but we confirmed it when he said, "You idiots were supposed to effing die." And we pretty much were like, what the hell? And we realized he had this big thing for red dragons, and I mean big. We all realized it. If he had an option of lay or slay the dragon, he would lay with the dragon every time. And he wanted to get off on the dragon killing us, and always thought dragons were too awesome to be slain, and that dragons were done dirty in D&D. Cleric, on the other hand, put his foot down. He honestly thought that it was going to be a fair D&D campaign, but we were wrong, and he even apologized for inviting me to the campaign. Our paladin basically said, "Then what are you, some kind of furry?" But as a sorry,
But as
a furry, I had to correct him and say, "Nah, he's a therianthrope, obviously." Now this is where it gets funny. For context, oh reader of mine. Sorry, I won't make fun of him too much. Therians or therianthropes, aka otherkin, believe that they're an actual animal. Some think that their soul is that of an actual animal, whereas a furry is just a fan of anthropomorphic animals and tend to own a personal character that they vicariously live through or act as a persona for them. Now, okay. The therianthrope speculation was then confirmed by the DM's girlfriend, that he informed us that he really did think he was a dragon cursed to human form. But knowing the fact that the DM wanted us to lose, as players, we ended up leaving and going to Cleric's playtest homebrew. So they ended up leaving.
Yeah.
Oh, reader of mine, I do wish to warn you that please, if a DM is insisting on forcing you into an unwinnable battle in D&D, just get up and walk away. No D&D is better than bad D&D. Yeah, that's wonderful. And a first edit, I forgot to mention until after I posted, but Cleric did not take kindly to being called an idiot. They weren't a very confrontational person, and when confronted or yelled at, they shut down, and they will often run to the bathroom to cry. They do have a personal history. That sucks.
Not great.
It's not really, like, no offense, I don't think any adult should have to run to the bathroom and cry if they're called an idiot at a D&D table.
I don't think they should either.
But there's better ways to handle that.
Yeah,
but
there are many people who are sensitive, and it's like
if that personal history was known, then that's also another strike.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, either way, the GM was completely out of line in him calling anybody an idiot because he's the biggest idiot in this entire freaking scenario. So, like,
second edit, I really feel like I had to just clear this up a little. Our campaign had no present red flags, and what had previously happened during the campaign had little important to the actual horror part. What our DM planned, he was keeping very tight-lipped about. We didn't even know he was ripping off of Critical Role's Vox Machina until a friend of mine showed me the official YouTube channel. Since then, I've been a fan. Do not ever let a bad DM ruin your game. If your DM is putting you in an unwinnable fight, it is best to pick up your dice and minis and just nope out of the campaign and walk away. No D&D is better than bad D&D. Now, I really enjoy the fact that this person, obviously, they're like, yeah, I know what happened. This is wrong. I left.
Yep.
But I wanted to share with y'all this stupid idiot. Now I'm gonna make a comment right here.
Please
right
do.
Now. Stop forcing your weird bullshit fetishes on other people. I do not care if you think you're a dragon. You're not a fucking dragon, and I do not want to fight God in D&D when I'm just trying to fight a dragon.
Preach, brother.
It pisses me off when people do this. It is silly, it is childish, and it's fucking weird. I don't care what weird sexual deviancy you do outside of my D&D campaign. Unless you're hurting other people, then I will call the cops on you. But the reality is that I shouldn't have to join a D&D table and then find out my DM wants to fuck the NPC characters that he created in the game. Also, why does he have a girlfriend? He's a dragon. Why doesn't he go? Why does he? Why?
Well,
you believe in this
well,
thing?
hey, again, because dragons, technically speaking,
No,
are still attracted to all manner of creatures.
Don't fucking
Sammy.
start with me, Adam.
They eat all creatures and they like to have sex with all creatures. You can read it in the lore, Sam.
No,
they are omnivorous creatures in all contexts of the word.
Look, all I know is that the romantic life is probably terrible, and he's a fucking weirdo. You
I
did a good thing by leaving.
mean,
You did a good thing by leaving. The self-admitted furry part is probably an unfortunate thing that comes out of this.
I don't even know how that works. I just don't. I've never understood how that can be a thing where it's like, oh, like I
have a friend somewhere that's like that, and I get it, and they've explained it to me, and I don't think I could ever like do it myself or come to terms with it if I was with somebody like that, which is why they're my friend. And that's they're over here.
Here's the thing. Like again,
what everyone does on their own time is
that's what I'm saying. I got no judgment about a person who's like, okay, you know, everyone can feel how they want to feel, right? You feel a certain way, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't be demonized because, oh, well, I feel like I'm this thing. And it's like, okay, that's fine. There's no issue or problem with that. The only issue or problem I feel like arises, and I guess I do feel like that is a bit of an issue with a lot of things in today's world, is people feeling compelled to make their feelings everyone else's shit. Like,
yeah.
That is way too prominent of a problem, in my opinion, where it's like, look, yeah, you can feel how you want to feel. But why exactly is it that you need to force me to acknowledge how you feel that you feel? Like, that's got nothing to do with me. Like, just like this, in this sense, in this case, it's like okay, you like dragons. That's great. You know what? Cool. I love dragons. Dragons are freaking awesome. They're one of my favorite fantasy created things.
But do you want to fuck one?
No, not, you know what? Not in real life. I don't believe I'm one in real life, but you know what? If we're talking about, hey, in the game, this dragon can like transform and stuff. And it's like, you know what? Sure. They transform into, you know, a big titty alien goth girlfriend. Sure. Why not? Why wouldn't you want to sleep with that thing in game? Why not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. If that was discussed as possible in your sessions.
Exactly. If that was part of the expectation put forth in the campaign, I was like, hey, yeah, we might do some romance stuff. Once again, I would be like, yo, we don't need to describe anything. We can just fade to black. You know, it's just like, oh, hey,
dude,
you know,
Baldur's Gate did it well.
Yeah,
most of the encounters in that game are fade to black, except for those.
Like you see some kissing, you see maybe some like hugging or whatever, but nothing superly overt. And it just fades to black when stuff starts to really get going. And it's like, that's fine. Just do that. You know what? If you know what, I'll even say again, if you want to, you know, have, like we said, those kinds of so-called erotic role play, whatever, go find another group that are all interested in one. There are so many. How do all, like, we've seen it. We see all these stories about these people. Why don't you just make your own separate subreddit or 4chan group, Discord server, whatever? All y'all get together. Anybody else who wants that? So you
Adam,
have
do that already. It's
you.
Just I
know.
Many children.
I know, and it's just like, just damn it, make.
Yeah, because for some reason
I don't understand the point of trying to thrust it on. And I guess, to be fair, in this particular post,
they didn't really.
He didn't actually engage in any like sexual or any deviant behavior.
It was
more so just a douchey move about, and you know, because he made an encounter that was basically unwinnable. I will say, however, to that point, maybe in the essence of being fair, as we always try to be here in the Arcane Archive, having a so-called unwinnable encounter, we've talked about this before, I believe, is not necessarily an overtly bad or an objectively bad thing, right? how you accomplish or succeed an encounter is not always about destroying, defeating, or killing the enemy or the obstacle. Sometimes something is too strong for you to fight and you have to just run the hell away.
Well,
Or
that's so
there's something else.
ironically, if we look at the actual source material that this DM is bastardizing,
Exactly.
there isn't a perfect example of that kind of encounter happening in that game, in which they are at a sort of royal announcement kind of commemoration deal. 5 dragons attack, kill a bunch of people. The party just grabs who they can save and gets out.
They dip the hell out. They are not equipped to fight
No.
these things right now.
Could they put up a fight? Could they kill maybe 1 or 2 of the dragons? Possibly, maybe.
That's debatable. Even then,
if they got lucky, right? If they got extremely lucky, they didn't have breath
rolled
recharges
really well, and he rolled really bad.
Yeah. But that's not really how you play D&D. If you have any kind of strategic outlook. And so they said, all right, where are the people we care about? Let's get them and as many citizens as we can and bamf them out using is it tree stride or what is it? Transport via plants?
They had transport via plants, I think, for one, as they had like dimension door and some other stuff too.
Well, to get them all out of the city. So they did the best they could with what they had, and they ran. Now, should you maybe as a team, as a group of players tried that? Sure, but it doesn't sound like the DM was going to let that happen anyway, based on the fact that he was mad that they won. So that's a different kind of unbeatable encounter. That is, the DM wants you to die.
That's the thing. That's the one aspect, because he specifically said that they were able to confirm that the GM just wanted to kill them. Like he didn't have any other intention. He just wanted to obliterate them with his super fancy badass dragon, which again is even more hilarious because, to Sammy's point, he let them use a bag of holding, like the bag of holding holdover maneuver, if we want to call it that, like where it's just like, oh well, that's not how that works anyway.
Well, to be frank,
you could have sent him to the astral plane.
Well, no. So this is another thing. If you did just one bag of holding and another bag of holding, if you sacrificed a party member, on top of the dragon, the tear into the astral plane that the bag of holding creates is not big enough to take the whole dragon. So wouldn't it take a chunk out of it anyway?
That's what I mean. And you could do that a couple of times.
But like you'd have to sacrifice one of your players. So one of your players,
if you had like, let's say in theory, if you had like certain spells, let's say like Mage Hand, right?
Sure.
Like one character, if you had telekinesis, whatever, is like over by the dragon, throws its bag of holding down, like opens it up, and then like runs away. Other character takes their bag of holding with their Mage Hand and like drops it, or even just stuffs it straight into the other bag.
That would work, and you would irreparably damage or kill the dragon based on the amount of space gets torn into the astral plane.
It's not a 10-foot radius.
Yeah, it's not like a portal.
No,
it just all of whatever's in that space gets. It's just yeeted out of existence.
So like it is literally a gate. It's a gate that opens to the astral plane. So it's literally like a thing. It's literally like a black hole. It's a literal black hole that emanates for a moment instantly and then sucks everything in within 10 feet of it and deposits them to a random place in the astral plane, and then it closes.
And so, I mean, whether or not you would rule that the dragon's too big to go through the gate, or it would just get part of the dragon.
I mean, it literally says any creature within 10 feet. It doesn't specifically stipulate a size complaint. So you could the entire dragon would just get sucked into the astral plane if it's within 10 feet of the portal.
So this TM doesn't even know how to do that correctly, which is funny.
He's got no one but himself to blame for his own uber badass dragon dying, I guess.
I think that's the best part of this, is that not only was he the reason that everything went poorly for himself, he blamed these people and then just had his whole fetish exposed by everyone at the table, including his significant other. And then they just left. So
that's the thing. I don't even think he cares if his fetish is exposed.
Probably not.
Because like he told his girlfriend, and his girlfriend was fine with telling them. So either she has like some real, he either did some shit to her, or she's like, you know what, screw you, I'm gonna tell everybody this thing about you,
Yeah, I just find it
or
funny.
he
Like,
just doesn't even care, and it's like, all right,
I also like I'm gonna give credit to OP here. Like, you are very willing to be, the explaining person and being like, no, that's not what that is. But outing yourself so quickly is hilarious to me. Um, and then just freely conversing about it in the comments is also very funny. But big ups to you. You obviously have no, you are proud of what you're into, and you don't seem to be pushing it on anyone else. So congratulations to you. You are the right kind of person for the job. Um, and I want to put that out there.
hey, you got the stamp of approval, buddy, the Arcane
Because
Archive stamp of approval.
I usually am not a big fan of most of these groups of people. Um, so you know what? You're doing great. And I'm sorry you had to go through this. But you already know what you have to do from now on. So I don't even have to tell you what that is. You used the no D&D is better, way better than bad D&D like 8 times in your last like 3 paragraphs. So good on you. You already got it drilled down.
Yeah,
And
he's
hopefully the rest of your party that you seem to now also be playing with, albeit it's based on the world of Destiny, so that's also gonna suck for you. Because Destiny's
yeah.
terrible. So I'm sorry about that in advance, but I hope you have a better time with that group of people who seem to get along, because you immediately left the campaign and started doing that. So like, yeah,
Hey, you know,
that's exactly how that
that's
should be
what you should
handled.
do. You know what? When you find that stuff, if this GM is proven to be inconsolable or unchangeable, unmovable, just dip the hell out. Find a different game.
God, that's like surreal.
Yeah.
I
Oh, damn it. Never mind. You can't use Mage Hand for the bag of
no.
holding. Yeah, it weighs 15 pounds, so you wouldn't be able to lift it with Mage
I guess
Hand.
you could do
You
telekinesis.
could do telekinesis, or you could do 2 Mage Hands, which could then technically lift up to 20 pounds together. And then you
Yeah.
could do it at that point. But you couldn't just do it with the one, unfortunately. I guess you could also theoretically try to throw the bag of holding into the other bag of
Yeah,
holding.
you could have one guy put
You
his
could
bag of
just
holding on the
try to
ground,
like yeet
and the other one could
it.
Kobe the bag of holding into the other bag of holding.
Yeah. Whoop.
Or
Oh,
or
bro,
just
what an homage to the legend.
find someone who wants to be a martyr. It would be
There you
amazing.
go. Yeah, yeah. Find someone who or at least, maybe they have plane shift and they can come right back. Either way. Let's move on to our next story for the day. Okie dokie. So, this is titled Stupid Little Fella. Just a little bit of a trigger warning. There's a bit of an essay warning here for any of those again. But continuing on, spoilers for Waterdeep Dragon Heist. So I have a guy in my group, totally cool in real life, but generally kind of a douchebag during D&D. In our actual campaign at the time, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, we had multiple roleplay interactions throughout the story that didn't involve combat. Me, a high elf paladin, and our other party member, a tiefling barbarian, generally followed these interactions as it both fit with our characters' alignments and goals. However, little douche, Dragonborn Ranger, could not fathom that we could ever be peaceful. He insisted on stabbing people, punching people, and full murder hoboing every NPC ever he could ever meet. Normally, this wouldn't really bother me, which I personally find that to be weird. What do you mean normally this wouldn't bother you? But it's hard to watch our GM, great guy, try and roleplay before being cut off with an I rolled to stab him in the throat. Eventually, we reached the gold dragon vault. I, being a paladin, decided to respect that we had no claim on the gold and that we should just leave it. Barbarian, however, wanted it for themselves. This created a roleplay moment, where we weighed the pros and cons and morality over the situation. However, this engagement was shortly shat upon by the ranger, who dared to utter, I shoot a poison arrow at the man. He then also had the nerve to call me an asshole for arguing with the party, and that I have to stick up, and that I have a stick up my ass. Listen, I hate when people say it's what my character would do, but come on, I'm a paladin. I wouldn't stand for just blindly murdering this man for money. Okay, he's being the asshole. Anyways, that wasn't even the worst part. Murder hobos are no crazy thing in D&D. Once again, why is he arbitrating for murder hoboing? What do you mean? No, that should not be an okay. All right, anyway. The worst is when we had D, not his actual name, run a one shot. D was very new and he was super excited to try it out. And he fleshed out a campaign based around Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I will admit that is an interesting idea there. I went in with an Air Genasi warlock who had a deal with a businessman of the underworld for a ticket, as it was his dad's dying wish to see the factory. Douchebag played a human bard. 10 minutes in, and he immediately says, I stick my D into the chocolate statue. The DM is audibly uncomfortable and says, okay, roll strength. Douchebag does, rolls like a 5, and then the GM goes, yeah, your D is crushed and is completely useless now. Asshole gets pissed. Why the F do I have to roll strength for that? He screams. Dude, it's hard chocolate, the GM says back.
So I love that as like an answer.
That's
like,
dude, what do you
like, what do you
expect,
mean?
bro? Yeah, you trying to literally like penetrate, you're trying to drill into some hard chocolate, bro. What do you expect? Anyways, after him proceeding to threaten SA and other actions on every NPC and PC possible, he eventually accidentally is pushed into a giant cotton candy twisty thing and is instantly torn apart and dies. Normally, I am never advocating for instant kill shit like that, but this shithead absolutely deserved it. Have to deal with him for the rest of Dungeon of the Mad Mage and other campaigns. It's incredibly sad because he's a nice guy in real life, but it's painfully obvious that he's taking all his anger and frustration out on a game that the rest of us are just trying to enjoy. End post. Look, see, another textbook example of like, hey, this guy apparently is really nice or great outside of playing. I'll be honest, sometimes I don't have the ability in any real, like, factual or standard of measurement to truly judge whether or not this is true. But sometimes I feel like, are they really good people outside of the game?
Yeah, like I
are they though? Like, to me, it just seems so weird that a person could change so much, so intensely from who you apparently know them in so-called real life to this here, that they are virtually unrecognizable. Like, that just seems like, again, don't get me wrong, D&D or TTRPGs absolutely have the capacity to bring certain parts of you out that you might not have the freedom or you might not feel comfortable with, expressing as much in your normal day-to-day life. That absolutely is a thing that can happen. But I feel like I just don't feel like it should be possible for a person, again, to essentially be completely different from who they are. Like, I don't know about you, Sammy. I've never necessarily experienced a person who I knew, out of game and have spent time with, interacted with, and then who I ended up playing with that acted completely different from who they seemed to be outside of the game. And then when we then left the game, who then shifted back to being somebody completely different from who I just saw in the game.
So the only thing I can say is that some people who maybe don't play TTRPGs or they're relatively new to it, they can be prone to treating it like a joke. Like, oh, we're just here to have fun. It's not serious. And like that can, I think, rub you the wrong way or like come out in ways that are a little bit more inappropriate or
but I mean, I
kind
feel
of
like
not
people
understood.
can do that even outside of game too. Like they just like to screw around and say some kind of off the cuff shit or some insensitive stuff, and you're like, bro, what the fuck, man? And he's like, I was just joking, It's like,
and like that, maybe that's true, but I've also just seen some people where they just don't understand that like some people might think it's that they take it seriously. And to them, it's like, well, this is a game. Like, shouldn't I treat it like every other game I play? And it's like, no.
Well,
and then you stop playing, and then they're like right back to because they're your
friend.
friend.
That would be another thing too. Like, have you never played video games with this person before? It's like if they act like that, and like I don't like playing video games with most of my friends for that reason too. Where it's just like you're just running around, you're doing all this shit, you're doing all this stuff. I'm like, dude, I don't want to play with you. That's not how I like to play. Stop it. Like, and it's like,
yeah, I agree. I think that's the only
I
that's
don't
the
know.
only time I've seen it where it like makes any sense.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's sometimes it can just be hard for me to reconcile or to imagine a thing because it's like I don't think I've ever had that where it's like I play a game with a person and I'm like, wow, you are completely different from how I know you in real life. Like this does not make any sense at all. Like you are an absolute douche canoe in game, and then all of a sudden, though, you're a really nice, great guy out of it. Like I'm like, I don't know if that's never happened to me before. So it's sometimes hard for me to recognize. You got another one, Sammy?
I do.
All right,
I'm gonna go with the I don't know how to leave.
hit that.
Um, all right. The title of this is as I just said, I don't know how to leave. Okay, this is the first table I've played at that wasn't with my family. That's adorable, by the way. So for the first few months, every red flag was played off in my head as maybe this is normal for D&D, and I just really didn't know. However, things seem more and more unstable or unhealthy to me. At least they are affecting me so much that I wonder if it's really normal. Um, it all started when I addressed the issue that the DM was having pretty intense arguments or disagreements with their significant other at the table during sessions. Oh. I addressed it in a direct but not accusatory or rude tone, and it kind of got better. However, it was played off by them as them being together for so long that that's the way they operate. I've been with my partner for 13 years, and we don't speak to each other this way, but I digress. Then after this, it seems like everything I do or say is construed in a rude or ill-intentioned manner by the DM. Then in turn, they respond to everything I do or say in a passive-aggressive and sometimes more aggressive way. And when I try to discuss it because it really affects me negatively, they blamed it on my alleged rudeness and their mental health issues. I myself have mental health issues, but I don't ever use them as a reason to hurt people. Maybe when I was a teen I did, but not anymore. Not that I'm better than them, it just seemed odd to me. I just don't know what to do. I have become close with one other member of the group, and our characters are even connected, and I feel so guilty if I were to quit. I dread the thought of going, and I feel like no matter what I do or say, nothing really gets resolved, and the blame is just put back onto me. I'm a busy parent who struggles with chronic illness, etc., and I feel like this is draining the little spare energy I have. Like, why am I still doing it? I have no idea. I'm scared of losing the player who's my friend and causing issues. I just don't know what to do. Now, this to me, this is sad.
Yeah,
Never,
that's a little heartbreaking.
yeah, you tried to make yourself known that you had a problem with something in a respectful adult manner, and it was thrown back into your face, and you're now being treated worsely because of it. Um, I mean, short answer is leave. The person at the table, tell them ahead of time. I doubt you'll lose your friendship with someone, especially if you explain to them why you feel the way you feel.
If they're worth it
Um,
anyway, if the relationship is worth it, and
oh
if
no,
they
I mean
also
like
feel it, you know.
I assume there's no way that the other people at the table don't see this. It might not bother them as much, but they definitely see it. And if they don't, then it may not be worth keeping that person around anyway. To not trying to be harsh, but just being realistic, it doesn't sound like you have a lot of spare time in your life for shitty people. Um, if that person that you seem to have some sort of connection with at the table doesn't see that this is a shitty experience for you and doesn't have any sympathy for that, then they're not worth keeping in your life anyway. Um, the reality here is your whole feeling guilty if I quit. It's the way you go about quitting. You let the person know ahead of time. You do it in a polite adult way, and you do not give anyone
There's
the ammo or the opportunity to throw that shit back at you because it is not
I
your
mean, I
fault.
was gonna say you are. I do want to again try to hit this particular concept home for everybody. You are under no obligation to stay in a campaign that you are choosing to be a part of willingly.
Yeah,
You're not paying this person to like run a game for you. Technically speaking, at that point they would still maybe be under more of an obligation to try to again like adjust things for your comfort and benefit at that point. But I
yeah.
could understand a little bit more. So, oh, I pay this person. I want to get my money's worth. I don't want to like just lose out on money, whatever. But even then, like, even if they were, for instance, paying you to play in their game, give the money back. You are under no obligation to stay in this game, in any game, ever, ever,
No.
for any reason that you do not choose. That you are not being like, hey, the point of the game is to have fun, is to enjoy yourself, to be able to relax, create fond, fun, loving memories for yourself, for your friends, people at the table, whoever else. And if that is not being accomplished, then you should just stop. And if, in fact, even worse, if the opposite is occurring, where it is actively harming you, where it is getting toxic and poisonous and harmful, like, no. And again, like Sam said, you don't have to be a douchebag or an asshole and quit like an asshole, but you can absolutely do it in a perfectly cordial, polite, considerate manner. Say, like, I'm sorry. Like, even for me, and when I was part of the cringe campaign where the GM finally just went way too freaking far and he did some shit that I was super not okay with, I still was just like, hey, y'all, I can no longer really be a part of the campaign. It's kind of going in a direction that I'm not comfortable with or whatever. So I'm leaving, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, even when arguably I could have just gone off on this dude, because he and I were already having a conversation before that about it. It's like, you know what? It's whatever. You can just leave. You don't have an obligation to stay, to be. And I know some people do, where it's like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to ruin the game for anybody else. That's like one of, if not like the number one highest reason where so many people continue to let bad shit happen when they're in a game. It's because like, oh, I didn't want to ruin the game for everybody. Oh, I didn't want to be the downer. Oh, I didn't want to be the one that, like, da 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 da. And it's like, look, bro, sweetie, my friend, my little dude, like,
yeah,
it's already happening. You are already the person who is feeling this way. Now you can ask to see if anybody else is also feeling this way, but regardless, you are still important enough that this happening to you, even if it doesn't happen to anybody else, you are still important enough to do what you need to do for yourself to better yourself.
Yeah.
Be better.
There's no reason, there's no reason to feel bad about leaving a campaign, unless, it's, you don't want to leave the campaign. That's not the case here. So I really, there's so many people like in the comments, like I love seeing it, but I love all of it's like this outpour of like, no, don't put yourself through that. Like, just do it politely and concisely and get out of there.
Yeah, dude basically, there's a comment here that literally like highlights exactly. He's like, hey guys, I don't think this table is a good fit for me, so I'm gonna drop the campaign. Thanks for having me. And you move on. And then the OP responds like, oh, that's a good idea. My initial reaction was to give an emotional response, but honestly, I'm so exhausted. I just want to give a direct to the point exit and leave it at that. I've tried so many times to have a mature adult resolution to the issues, and it just goes nowhere. I don't even see the point anymore. It's like, yeah, it's literally as simple and easy as that. Like I also just said, it's like, that's all you got to say. Just like, hey, I don't think this is a good fit for me, or hey, unfortunately, due to other life, things going on, if you feel like you don't want to incur the wrath of anybody, you can say, hey, there's some other life things going on for me right now. Other, priorities have cropped up and I won't be able to continue the campaign currently, and then you can just leave. And it's okay. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I got another one as well. Experienced player tells me that apparently my campaign is a horror story.
Oh boy.
So this one's gonna be interesting, you guys. Where I would be quite interested to see everybody's thoughts and feelings down in the comments, kind of about this particular thing, because it is an interesting kind of head scratcher scenario, weirdly enough. But without further ado, getting into it. Warning: I am not a native English speaker, and as a matter of fact, I'm self-taught. So there will be a few mistakes in this text. Please be patient. Ironically, there's, funny enough, a bit of foreshadowing with that first kind of thing. So I have just gotten into D&D not so long ago. I was inspired by Baldur's Gate 3 and decided to give it a try with a few of my friends: Lizard, Moose, Fishy, and Badger. One of them, Lizard, bought the Baldur's Gate to sit into Avernus book and decided to be our DM. However, something unexpected happened. Lizard asked me to kind of train him on DMing by showing how it's done before we start Descent campaign, which that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. You guys have apparently all just gotten into Dungeons and Dragons recently, so I don't think he literally says he hasn't really had a lot of experience. Either way, so I have improvised a campaign for him. Eventually, however, other friends joined and we had a lot of fun playing. We did a lot of stupid stuff and enjoyed it quite a bit. Recently, I had met with one of my colleagues, we'll call her colleague further on, and found out that she's an experienced TTRPG player who started playing D&D over 17 years ago. She wanted to know about my game, asked if she could play, then requested some stories, and I agreed to tell her. She became absolutely horrified almost immediately at my recounting. So, because she can't speak English, I'm making this post here to show you some of our stuff that was considered horror story by an experienced player. Number 1, my whole campaign is improvised. I did not prep anything for it and made up basically everything as we went. Essentially, the whole action is created and moved, or the whole narrative, I think he meant to say, is created and moved by players. I'm making up the places, the background, and all of the enemies on the fly. They don't have any stats or abilities pre-made or created. So if I want to do something with them, I just make it on the spot and run with it. My players liked the overall experience because they can do whatever they want and there's no stop sign whatsoever. But my colleague called that a total mess. From her perspective, this whole game has no point, no plot, and it should feel awful to my players when they have to wait while I process things. 2, we play one-on-one. My players joined the game separately, and they usually can't come together to play. So currently, they are all spread out on the map, doing whatever they want to do separately. Eventually, they maybe might come together, but for now, I play with each one of them separately and don't even expect them to unite anytime soon. My colleague said that it's absolutely chaotic and I have no control over their actions whatsoever, which means that I basically, have 4 different games at the same time. Number 3, we use the rules that we like. Almost none of us actually read the player's handbook. We took the information from a few websites, YouTube, etc. A big part of our rules is taken from Baldur's Gate 3, and we have no shame about that. We use a number of leveled spells all in one turn, and we chug potions as bonus actions, and so on. My colleague said that while not following D&D rules strictly is not always a bad thing, we should at least read the book and know the stuff it says before we just simply cross it out. Number 4, my players are absolutely insane. When we were starting to play, I've had to help everyone to make their character sheets. Unfortunately, because that was their first time playing, they did get incredibly bored and frustrated with this process. So many things like backstory, goals, connections, and etc. were left blank. But when the game started, boy, did those PCs evolve. Lizard's character received hyperfixation. In case if he fails an intelligence saving throw, he becomes obsessed with something and tries his best to reach whatever goal he set. Other player, Moose, stuck in a hut near his starting location. His character literally has psychosis and has to roll a homebrew table with mental breakdown effects whenever he fails at anything miserably. The third player, Fishy, tries to communicate and possibly merge with a sapient mushroom all the time. Me and Sam also said before, maybe he means sentient. A sapient might also technically.
I think you mean sentient only because sapient is like a monkey.
Yeah,
so sentient makes more sense to me. Either way, it's weird.
It's
that's not really an issue.
It's
honestly.
it's not terrible. The last player, Badger, rolled for their traits on character creation and now has to play a Duragar Nazi who always tells everyone around how their race is superior. Unfortunately, colleague thinks that I let this bunch of weirdos do too much and they transform the game into a circus, which leads to chaos and gives bad habits to new players. I mean, that last one definitely sounds a little problematic, not gonna lie. The other 3 don't sound terrible. maybe the second one is also a little kind of problematic, but that last one definitely. I'm like, what? What? Why though? Why? Why though? Why would you ever? Never mind. Well, let's move on. Number 5. I let nasty stuff happen. Damn it. I thought we were done with the fetish stuff. Lizard's character wanted to loot dog corpses, and he described how exactly he skins them, looks inside of them, etc. I let him do that and rewarded him for doing so because I thought that it was cool. His backstory is connected to hunting. Now
I actually don't hate that. Like,
it's
as
not
much
the
as I'm
worst,
like,
and
as long as I'm
he's
like,
a lizard folk, so I mean, it's
yeah,
like, you know, they do that.
that's really just like as long as you're good with it and the players at your table are good with it. That one, in the grand scheme of things,
It's
talking about
not.
what you do to go hunting and how you break down an animal is a completely normal thing
It's not the
that
worst.
some of us know how to do in real life.
That's what I
So
mean. It's not the
that's
worst. I would also just say, obviously, like you said, if it makes certain people queasy, then you probably don't need to be super overly
yeah.
descriptive.
I think the worst part is if there's someone who like really loves dogs and they don't like hearing
That's what I
about it.
mean. Like that, it would probably be like, yeah, you know. But I mean,
I mean, are you
either
doing this to someone's
way.
pet or are you doing this to like a wild animal?
Well, that's
It's
what I
like
mean. Like it's like there. I mean, there's a difference. Again, as a lizard folk, if he is a lizard folk at all, even it would still kind of make sense for
oh
him to
no,
act that way.
100%.
But it is still just like, hey, you know, you can't just be acting overtly, you know, whatever, in complete disregard for the rest of the people at the table. And that goes both ways too. It's like, hey, though you might be a bit squeamish or sensitive about this topic, it's like, you know, it is what it is sometimes. But
Yeah.
anywho, now he has a cursed monkey head talisman on his neck that makes nearby monkeys aggressive towards him. He also made it into a spellcasting focus, so it's not going to disappear anytime soon. Moose, on the other hand, randomly got a trait with a fear of water, and eventually he had to cross a river. I made him roll acrobatics checks, and he failed and had to swim, and then a roll psychosis table for his mental breakdown. Okay. Moose liked the whole thing since his traits were actually doing something to him and let him roleplay his character's despair. Fishy caught a fish and fried it with a fireball. Eventually, her character felt some kind of stomach ache and had to roll a con saving throw. Unfortunately, at that moment, I had to leave the table for a minute. But after I came back, I discovered that Fishy rolled a nat 1, and Lizard actually took the DMing seat for that moment. Okay. I was sitting and watching half an hour scene of Fishy's character suffering from diarrhea with all the sordid, nasty details. Again, why? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you know, we can all have a moment of having fun potty humor. Like, of course, you know, where it's just like, but he's literally saying like, he sat there for half an hour while Dark Souls boss music playlists were playing in the background. Badger's character talks with a bad German accent, and every single time they have to talk for more than a minute to literally any character in the game, they turn on Erica German March and try to manifest their character's nationalistic views. I won't even describe the look on Colleague's face when I told her all of that. Just so you know, her face came from pale green to dark purple during this part.
He said I won't even.
That's what I was gonna say. You literally just said you wouldn't describe it, and then you just described it. Like, I don't know. Like, okay, we'll finish it off. So in the end, Colleague told me that we may be the worst new players she has ever heard of, and she would definitely not like to play with any of us ever. And while I'm mostly in agreement with her, okay, in my opinion, the things we do might seem toxic or just nasty to different people, but it doesn't matter as long as we have fun. What do you think? We're both eager to know your opinion. TLDR, me and my friends have fun playing D&D, but the experienced player is shocked about the things that we do. In post.
I mean, if we're gonna break it down real quick now, this isn't D&D.
It's not.
It's a TTRPG experience.
So
it's not D&D.
there's a literal where is it? It's a there's an actual comment, I believe, that's like it was a perfect kind of
it's the second one. The game. Yeah, the game as described isn't D&D, but it
Yeah.
sounds like a great theater of the mind experience nonetheless.
Nonetheless, yep.
I have I've played multiple TTRPGs. They're very different, but still TTRPGs. I think I'd feel like it was a horror story if I was invited to the game of D&D and this is what I got. But if I was invited to a pen and paper RPG and got this, I'd have fun. That said, a lot of people who don't have a lot of gaming experience tend to associate D&D as a catch-all term for TTRPGs. So, again, like what they're doing aside from the weird Nazi stuff, uh, is fine as long as everyone at that table is okay with it, right?
Yeah, and it's like, I mean,
If you
yeah,
were to
it
invite a
is.
random person into this and not adequately explain to them what you are doing, you are yes, you are a horror story. 100%.
I mean,
If someone said, "Oh, come join me in this really cool D&D game I'm playing," and they didn't tell me anything, and that's what I walked into, I'd have the holy water and the cross out in like 10 seconds. I'd be like, "What the fuck are we doing here?" Like, I would be angry. Now, not everybody would feel the same way. There are some people who would be pleasantly surprised and enjoy that for some reason. I don't personally understand it. As long as you're
no.
not hurting anyone, sure.
It doesn't really matter. Like, that's the biggest thing. It's like, again, like he said, if all the players are having fun, if the GM himself is having fun, then that's all that really matters at the
Yeah.
end of the day. Like, again, all of this stuff, like, yeah, if you're the only thing that I would say to this, and I believe his colleague kind of hinted at this as well, is like, if these players then end up at any point going to a separate D&D game now and start behaving or acting in this
It's not going to
way,
go well.
they would be in for a pretty huge wake-up call.
Yeah.
And might end up kind of shooting themselves in the foot, or stabbing themselves in the foot, whichever way, which, because they had expectations that were not realistically or reasonably managed. It's like, look, this is essentially, like the dude said, this is like a theater of the mind. This is basically a bunch of people kind of playing pretend with some math rocks to add to it, right? They took aspects or pieces of D&D and kind of made their own personal homebrew thing. Very similar, ironically, to our space sci-fi hentai horror story from before. So yeah, again, that's kind of the actual fascinating aspect of this particular story, right? It's not, to Sam's point and to some of the points of the other commenters, it could be considered a horror story by D&D standards, where it's like, oh, you had an expectation to play D&D. This is clearly not it. Like again, his colleague is right. There doesn't really seem to be much of a plot. There doesn't really seem to be much of a point to anything that they're doing, aside from just random, weird, strange, crazy, chaotic, like life survival things. Like it kind of like runs like a freaking, adult cartoon sitcom kind of thing, where you literally just follow a bunch of kind of messed up, twisted, screwed up characters and just watch the daily shenanigans and hijinks that they get up to in the world,
Which is fine. It's just like
it's enjoyable. There's a reason why that's a trope in our society, in our world. We like that. It's funny to watch, to a certain extent. Not all of them are great, but it is funny to watch just incredibly dysfunctional, kind of crazy people, do things, because it's just so out of the ordinary. It's again, it is that kind of shock value or that shock, response kind of thing. And it's like, sure. And again, they had fun. That's what matters. I think me and Sam are in agreement that I don't think either of us would want to be a part of this at any point ever.
no, sir.
But I can also absolutely be an advocate for, like, hey, make your own homebrew stuff. Have fun with your homebrew stuff. Like, again, I'm currently in a campaign right now that, like, we are utilizing technically like the 5e system to a certain degree. And I've told Sam about this too. I think I've told you guys too a little bit, is like, but it is like a heavily homebrewed thing. Like, it is very, the GM like kind of utilizes a much more open, fast and loose rule system for things, and much more of a rule of cool kind of style. And it's like, that's fun too. It's kind of the first time that I've really been able to play in a game that does that. And while at first, some aspects of it were a little bit like, whoa, we might need to, and even now, sometimes we're like, whoa, we might need to maybe moderate that or tweak that just a bit to not make it just so ridiculously crazy. It's still a lot of fun to be like, hey, we can do all kinds of ridiculous, crazy, OP, dope shit in a more cinematic fashion than we might otherwise be able to in more vanilla D&D because
Yeah,
of the more mechanical, clunky, aspects of, combat and stuff. Um, and so
which I
yeah,
think is fine. Like that can be fun. I don't see any
yeah.
problem with that.
And it's like, so with this particular post, it's like, ironically, both of them, both the OP and his colleague, are kind of right. Where it's like, yeah, his colleague's right. It is like super chaotic, super insane. Like the fact that he plays with all of them apparently one-on-one. I will say though, it there's some things about this story that make me kind of question its validity, or its legitimacy, because this he keeps kind of contradicting himself, or going back on certain things that he literally just stated earlier. Like again, he says he apparently plays with them one-on-one, but then later on he also says that like when he had to step away from the game for a moment, another one of the players took over as DM for a second and like described the failure that the other player was experiencing from like a nat one. So it's like,
Which is a weird one.
so they're around, but they're not. Like what? Like, you know, it's yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say exactly. So that's one thing that I feel like kind of, and obviously it's freaking Reddit, so you got to take every single story you read kind of with a little bit of grain of salt, because you just never really know. But it is definitely kind of just like, huh. All right, you know what? Even if their campaign is a horror story to some, and you know what, at the end of the day, I guess maybe it is just really about that personal perception, really, because like yeah, there are plenty of things like maybe to these guys a game or campaign that me and Sammy like and run, a more vanilla version of D&D that would maybe be a bit more restricted to them. Maybe to them that would sound like a horror story. So it's just an interesting little thing to switch up your perception to be like, oh, okay, yeah, interesting, huh? Yeah, would not have necessarily thought of that. So honestly, still cool. Do you have another one you want to talk about, Sammy?
Yeah, why not? It's another shorter one.
Go ahead, hit it.
Um, this one's how I discovered I'm a sadistic DM.
Ooh.
This is back in my student days. I was in a TTRPG college group, and I found the perfect team for me, and we had so much fun every session. But our GM eventually started to get frustrated, um, not being able to be a player anymore, as they used to be only a player. So I jumped in and proposed a game I could plan. And so we started preparing. Everyone created their character, and the old GM made a fighter, former slave who escaped the neighboring country. And I found it really good because he gave a really nice backstory. Um, the main point being of his backstory, I know what slavery is, and I won't be a slave to anyone ever again. Yeah. So you see where I went immediately. For their adventure, they had to travel to said country, and GM had way too many marks on his body not to be recognized as a former slave. So, of course, everyone would treat him as such, and I took a weird and vicious pleasure in role playing it. Until, of course, he snapped and killed a man who was mistreating him, and it was like a wake up call for me. I intentionally put him in these situations where his team couldn't help him so that he could go back through the trauma of being a slave. This is a self admittance by this person. I had a talk with the GM after the game and apologized as I was entirely focusing on his character, and the game didn't last long after that. As adding to everything, I was not really a good beginner GM. I tried again with another story later and it went better, but still, it was a really awkward first time as a GM for me. Um, Now, my favorite comment about this before I get into actually seriously talking about it is the top comment is you could not waterboard an admission like I enjoyed role playing slavers torment a former slave out of me. Um, Look, in all reality, and this is me trying to not make this into a joke. Things like TTRPGs or role playing in general can bring things out of people that I think a lot of people don't expect, whether it's good, bad, or just awkward. Um, this person doesn't seem to actually relish in the fact that slavery is a thing. I think they more enjoyed role playing in a moment that unfortunately was darker than they realized it was going to be, but enjoyed it nonetheless. Um, and that's tough. I think a lot of people have been in that situation before where they do take pleasure in kind of not being the good guy. There's a reason it's a role play scenario and not real life. I give this person props for being honest and coming out and being
I
like,
was
yeah, I
gonna say,
enjoyed this part of it.
I think that's a big thing, and that's I feel like it's also kind of an important aspect to talk about. Again, we've been talking about this particular thing all throughout this video already about how, you know, the concept or the idea that engaging in this activity, this hobby, has a strange, miraculous ability to bring aspects of people out of them that apparently like they didn't necessarily even think that they had before, or that nobody else apparently noticed in them before, or and all manner of other things. And it's like that is an incredibly fast, at least in my opinion, an incredibly fascinating psychological aspect. Like where again, yeah, it's just like, but and again, I think I can kind of maybe explain at least a potential reason why like he may have felt the way he did. Because again, like it we all have intrusive thoughts. That's just a thing that people have. It's not horrible, it's not terrible. It doesn't make you a terrible or horrible person, is what I'm trying to say. It's just a thing, you know. Everybody thinks about stuff, and that's okay. It's how you choose to process and act on said thoughts and feelings at times that really defines that. And so for this individual, like I said, we said it before, he was attempting to establish a certain experience and narrative purpose and plot development for this character. Quite frankly, that is a great intention for a GM to have. I think a lot more GMs should try to do that more with their players, to incorporate their backgrounds, their previous experiences, to give them that spotlight when it is possible. That is a
Yeah.
great thing. It can make your players feel astronomically amazing when they're like their characters' fleshed out backstory comes to the forefront and they get to have that spotlight for a bit and they get to really hammer hone some juicy character development. In this particular instance, however, it clearly was not executed the best, and that happens sometimes. You know, again, the GM himself, I believe, had the best of intentions. He ended up executing it a bit too bad because I guess he got maybe a little bit too, and that's the thing I also heard is that like sometimes a person or a character or a GM or a player can apparently get too enmeshed or too deep into a character, and they start acting and behaving in a way that they don't necessarily agree with or like themselves apparently, but they just they get so caught up in the moment, I guess, that they don't recognize that they're maybe being more harmful than they are being complimentary. And it's definitely a thing that I've witnessed that for sure. So I can understand that where it's like, you know, but I guess I don't know.
I think
Even
I don't know. For me, the one thing I did see a comment that I think was actually a good point as like a learning moment for someone going through something like this, which is on the one hand, backstory should be full of interesting hooks that you can hang an adventure on, because the player will usually be interested in exploring those aspects and interacting with those elements. On the other hand, you do need to realize that some of those backstory components are of the never again variety, not the please interact with this fact variety.
yeah,
Um,
that's
Not every
fair.
person that makes a character that was a slave or was some sort of captive or had some sort of horrible event happen to them, not every person wants you to
Rehash that.
re-explore.
Yeah.
They want that to be something that they experienced, and that's why they're in the position they're in, and that's all they want. Now, I don't know how well the person creating the character communicated that. I don't know if there was a session zero. It sounds like you have never done this before, so there probably wasn't one. Um, which is why we have those things. Because there's nothing wrong with a character going through an event that marks them and then being treated differently because of it later on in the game. But there's a difference between maybe being treated poorly by a shop owner and being harassed maliciously and constantly by everyone they interact with in an entire city. That's like, because no offense, but even in places where, even in countries or places where that is still going on, there are still people there that do not agree with it. So if you're going to push that as a main part of the story, you also have to give him the solace of like there are retractors. There are
You
people
have to
that
have some
some
spots of
sympathy.
reprieve. We have to have
Yeah.
some spots of reprieve, right? An oasis in the desert, you know, like Sam just said, like it's not going to be a fun session if he's just getting systematically shit on by every single NPC that he is forced to interact with, you know, like, and or even doesn't even maybe want to interact with, you know, like it's just like,
It just seems weird to me.
and not everybody necessarily, like Sam said, like not everyone is going to just be systematically shitty towards this. People can be individuals. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not uncommon. It is a well-known thing. You know, we have many things in history where you have a vast amount of people who were swept up in sort of propaganda, other like extremely, you know, intense personalities of leadership that were able to like kind of brainwash or indoctrinate, you know, an entire kind of culture's belief system for a long time. Like that is a thing. Yeah. It's not unrealistic. It's not, you know, but you also again have to take in the aspect of like, well, this is a game. This is a player who is like, you know, like coming back here for it. There's also got to be a pretty, especially if slavery is like such a huge thing here, make an underground, you know, resistance or rebel movement or something that's
Yeah,
looking
like there's
to free them and then make them interact with him, right? Instead of it being just a constant shit fest on him, be like, hey, you survived, you got away, you broke free. Like
yeah.
we view you as like a symbol of our of freedom, of our ability to accomplish what a lot of us feel is impossible. You know, like don't make it just that he has to experience all the shitty negative aspects. Give him a true positive thing to stand foundation and thing to stand on coming back here. Like,
Yeah, because
and
not like not everyththing about this has to be a negative.
exactly,
I
like
understand wanting to like use a character's
hammer home
backstory.
the trauma
Yeah.
and, you know, to us inspire or instill an emotional reaction. We just said that. But you got to at the same time then give them that opportunity to go through that transformation. That's the point. That's the point of having an emotional reaction at first, like a more intense or negative one, is to then provide the opportunity to overcome that and to have that transformation and that character progression, right? You're a caterpillar and then you metamorphose into a butterfly after you go
Yeah.
through that transposition, that transition or whatever. Like, so that is paramount. You can't just have the negative shit. And to be fair, to the GM's credit, he said it. He recognized he probably didn't add the positive because he got too into the negative. He had fun just kind of doing the negative. And I think to that, I feel like it would be a not unreasonable assumption to be like, it can feel good for people to just release that shit onto others, right?
Mhm.
Even if you don't necessarily mean to, you know, it happens all the time where people are in a particularly charged state. I think we read a story about that last time as well, about a guy who was going through a lot of personal shit in his real life, and he didn't have a healthy outlet for it any other way. And so he took it out on his D&D party, and he said a lot of shitty, hurtful things to them, apparently. At least he doesn't know, but, or we don't know for certain since he said he left right away. He didn't get any responses, but I
Yeah.
think maybe this is a similar kind of thing where it's like it can be a cathartic like experience
Yeah.
to just unload on a person with all the, you know, any kind of vitriol or venom, you know, because you're channeling that from somewhere. You're channeling that in terms of being able to act this way and be this way to a person. And then if you get enjoyment from it, your body is probably just kind of, or your mind is just reacting to it instinctively of like, whoo, you just, you know, we let off some steam there, you know, but
Mhm.
it was definitely not the appropriate or right place to be doing it, especially not in that form.
No.
And I think, you know, the DM realized that, and that's why he posted this and he apologized. And that's important. That to me right there goes a long freaking way. I know to some people it doesn't. To them, I would say, you know, you got to let people make mistakes. You know, nobody's perfect. People are going to make some issues and mistakes here or there. You got to leave room for growth. Nobody's, you know.
I think the important part here is to learn from that, and it seems like this person has, and they're just sharing it for the sake of, like, you know, maybe don't make the same mistake that I did.
It's a literal cautionary tale, cautionary chronicle right there.
Which I like, because it's, you know, they're also not trying to like make an excuse. They literally
No.
were just like, I don't understand why I did this.
Yeah.
I think looking for, you know, other people who maybe experienced something similar
To give some insight, you know,
Yeah.
some experience, and that in essence, ironically, kind of should be what Reddit is for.
That's what forums are supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what forums are supposed to be for. And, you know, so we absolutely advocate for that here. Like, that absolutely gets the Arcane Archive stamp of approval. Not the behavior, but the transformation after it. The self-realization, the self like insight, or what do you when you
self-reflection.
Reflection. Thank you, sir. The self-reflection that you gain from, you know, realizing, oh shit, I think I just effed up a bit with that. Like, you know,
I personally, like, I don't think I've ever gone to that extent, especially like focusing on another player like that, or as a DM, like harking down on something this rough. But I think it's easy to fall into a trap like that. And it's unfortunate, you know, that you feel the way you do, because, you know, I don't know if the person accepted your apology. I don't know what any of that deal was. Hopefully, you know, you say you're still running games. I assume it's with some of the same people, so I hope that at least the people that you talk to were understanding with you, and, you know, all of that, because it sucks when you feel like now you've messed up and you don't get to interact with people anymore. Hopefully that's not the case, but yeah, that's a rough position to put yourself in, which you seem to understand, which is good. That's a huge bonus, I think.
Agreed. Honestly, I think that's probably the perfect place to leave it off today, people. You know, we started with fetishes, but we ended it off with some good, true blue self-reflection, and again, like, cautionary chronicle of a guy who maybe made a little bit of a mistake there, but just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention, and maybe again provide some semblance of comfort and support to people being like, hey, you know, this happened to me, and if it happened to you, you're not necessarily all by yourself. And, you know, while I'm not making excuses for my actions, I do know that, like, you know, this isn't something that I agree with or believe in for real.
Yeah, which is good.
And that's good. And that's absolutely, again, that is also what we are trying to do with the Cautionary Chronicles aspect of the channel now. It's like, you know, to make everybody who is new to D&D and who, again, maybe has had these experiences, or is maybe afraid that they will have these experiences, or doesn't even know what they could possibly expect, you know, especially on the negative side. It's like, well, you know, a lot of these, to be fair, are of the more extreme variety that we have picked for obvious, you know, entertainment and attention grabbing reasons too. But it is also a thing where you can experience a lot of this stuff in a much more watered down version, and that it's still important to be able to recognize and maybe have some tools and some at least idea of how to navigate it healthily, right? So with that, we hope that you guys have enjoyed today's episode. Be sure to like and comment on the video if you haven't already. Subscribe and share the channel, please. We appreciate it. And we hope to see you guys all next time when we dive back down into the archive.
See you guys.
Bye now.